Hello, everybody. Welcome to Respawn Volume 11. I'm Colby.
Holy shit, I'm Derek.
I know, we're here almost a full year into this bitch, and we are going full steam ahead.
We are, and I've been saying this for a few days now through text. I said it just before we started recording. This volume was kind of rough, man.
I don't hate it, but that being said, this is very low on actual forward momentum and plot.
It's like I was saying. It's like oops, all subplots.
Yeah.
There's very little. It's exactly what you said. There's very little forward momentum on the book. We do a lot of stuff we've already done recently in Spawn.
Yeah.
Actually, there's a comparison I can make to that if you don't mind a quick segue.
Oh, go ahead.
Something that the Baxter Building guys would talk about back on the Stan Lee and Jack Kirby issues, especially the issues where you could tell it was heavily Jack Kirby plotting, was that he'd keep going back to these ideas that you could tell he was chewing on, that he felt like he may not – it looks like he felt like he did not handle the way he wanted to handle them. So he'd keep kind of going back to these ideas. The biggest one, the easiest one to look at is the Watchers based on the Blue Area of the Moon and the Red Ghost and the Super Apes as kind of an alt Fantastic Four in that area. He does that story in like issue 11, then like again in like issue 30 something. So that's very clearly a story that he's got in his head and he's trying to play around with and get right. I kind of feel the same way about Spawn's big confrontation with Jason Wynn, because we get another one of those. We just had one not maybe 2 volumes ago.
Yeah.
And it feels like that's McFarlane has this idea that he wants to bring this confrontation between Wynn and Al Simmons' Spawn to a head, but he just can't. He can't figure out how to do it, keep the narrative going, and also put a period on this particular level of that story.
No, I think you're right there. I think we'll get to that in a minute, but I do think the Jason Wynn confrontation, it goes almost into a really interesting new place, but never quite gets there because
fucking A, yes.
It's almost there. There's a lot of great stuff because I actually that's issue 64. I actually really like that issue out of this volume, but we should mention this is issues 63 through 68 for those reading along at home. This is so we'll just start. So issue 63 starts off after the cliffhanger of 62 with a really cool cliffhanger. Al Simmons' Spawn has his face back. No clue how, doesn't understand what's happening. He's shocked. Cog is kind of warning him in the background that, hey, things may not be what they appear. Be careful. You get something that actually makes sense to me, which you get Spawn sees he got his face back, pretty much immediately gets all pimped out, dressed out, tries to look fresh as fuck, goes over to his ex-wife's house and basically tells Terry, hey, I'm going to go kill Wynn tonight, and also I'm going to get my wife back after this. And if you don't like that, we're enemies.
Yeah, couple things I want to point out here. One, I was on first read, and this is one of the ones I did get a chance to kind of double up on my reading. I'd absolutely forgotten about the encounter with Angela and the bolt.
Why is
taken her away and apparently changed Al's face. So it was really strange to be like, God, he only got his face back for 2 issues. What the fuck is the point of even all of this? And then I remember, well, at least there is at least some setup of apparently there's some kind of heavenly energy affecting him or something.
Well, that's my problem right now is I love Angela, one of my favorite comic characters. I have forgotten how little she is in the main Spawn series. Because
I wanted to ask, do you remember where she goes after this story that Bolt took her to? Does that ever get addressed?
I'm sure it does a little bit, but also
was it in her Curse of the Spawn story, or is that later in this series?
I think it's later in the series because I think Curse of the Spawn. I'm pretty sure she's already at this point already done with her story in Curse of the Spawn because that was before this, and then she dies and not die, like.
I was gonna say spoiler alert, man.
Yeah, like again, there's lots of stuff that happens, but she's not. I mean, she's with us for a while more, but not like for the long haul.
Okay.
So we got a good amount left with her, but not like a crazy amount left.
Yeah, that makes absolute sense. Because you said there's a surprising dearth of Angela in the overall Spawn mythos.
Yeah, and the overall mythos and a lot of spin-offs and a lot of the figures and a lot of the everything else, she's very prominent. But here it's not, which is weird because I had forgotten that she's not in any of these issues, which took me aback because like, oh yeah, we get this like big momentum. Like, okay, Angela's back in the picture. What's going on with his face? And we get this issue where again it makes sense that all he wants back is his life. He has for the first time feels like maybe he can get his life back. He tries to get it. He sets this up.
That's actually the other thing I wanted to point out. The line, then we've just become enemies, I guess. I don't know, man. As selfish and as impulsive and as reckless as we've seen Al Simmons, to absolutely throw away the admittedly tenuous relationship he's gotten back with his best friend over the last few issues so quickly. I mean, literally at the drop of a hat. It's not that it's not in character, it's that I'm sad that it is. You know, it doesn't. Yeah. I wish our hero, our anti-hero, had a little more tact. I don't know. It's just there's something about that line that really rubs me the wrong way, and I can't really put my finger on what it is.
I can get it. I mean, you got somebody that, you know, for the first time thinks he can get his wife back.
Right.
He thinks he now actually has this chance to fix everything, get his wife back, get his life back together. Maybe he's dead, but whatever. He looks like himself again. He can just live his life out with his wife. And honestly, like, as far as plot goes, that's most of 63. You have Sam and Twitch that start searching for Spawn again because they're starting to go, you know, why did he pick us? Why did Kincaid's body end up with us? Why do we keep winding up running into him or running into things he's affected? And that's kind of it.
Yeah. Again, like I said, almost 90% subplots, with a little bit of forward momentum on the why does Al have his face back. But again, the why of it gets lost so quickly in the miasma of got to get Jason Wynn, got to get Wanda back. The why, even Cog is like, dude, don't you have questions about this? And again, it's not out of character for Spawn to be like, nope. But it is kind of frustrating as a reader for this to be literally a 2-issue change. Because, I mean, spoiler alert, he's going to have his old face back by the next issue. And he's losing it by the end of the one we're about to talk about.
Yeah.
But just... It's like you said. There's something really cool and interesting. And if you'll remember, my favorite issue from last volume was the final issue where Angela came back, and you know we had this crackerjack slam bang of an ending, and then there's almost no follow through. Like I said, it's the subplots keep getting pushed or recycled to, if you want to talk about the Win plot, but no forward momentum on this amazing setup that we got from the previous issue. And while you're right, it's not bad. It is deeply frustrating.
Yeah, it doesn't. That's really, I guess, a lot of this volume is it doesn't really. We end off in a new place, but we don't really get the overall story much more. There's little hints here and there. We get a lot more of Cog and a lot more of kind of a little bit of how he's involved and how important he is to the story. Mm. But that's about it, because again, we go into 64,
which is another subplot though. The Cog subplot gets a inch closer. The Sam and Twitch subplot gets inched closer. The Al and Terry subplot gets the pieces get moved around the board, if not any further along. But there's no, like you said, like we keep saying, there's no overarching story that gets pushed forward. But yeah, let's go ahead. Let's move on to 64.
So 64, I think it's a really cool. It's a very typical kind of McFarlane story, but a very good thing he's good at, where it's kind of almost Assault on Precinct 13, but with Spawn going into Wynn's building. It's just him.
I actually like this Attack on Wynn's building better than the prior one, which is why it kind of reminded me of the Lee Kirby analog. Because again, it feels like McFarlane's got something in his system. He's got this story. He wants to have this confrontation, and he does it better this time.
Yeah.
This issue fucking rocks from a visual standpoint.
The visuals, the idea of Spawn is kind of using a little bit of his powers to transform into looking like one of these cyber guards, going to this building. Find out, okay, they have 400 guards coming before they get a chance to, because he knows this building. He puts the building on lockdown, shut down, so only 100 guards make it in, and it's him just kind of stealth game-wise, very smart, strategically taking out group by group by group in visually very pleasing, very cool ways. until he makes all the way to the top. And in the background, you have Cog, who has now run into Sam and Twitch.
Which is another great moment. We finally have these two incredibly important sets of, side characters, of supporting characters, finally getting to meet. And they're, honestly, if we want to talk about forward momentum and plot, their plot is really the thrust of the rest of the volume. Which is unfortunate, like I say, because it's mostly subplot. But at least it's interesting. And again, that's why I can't rate this volume as bad as much as frustrating, because there's a lot of good in these characters finally interacting.
Oh, yeah, there is so many great character moments and so many great things that we have wanted to happen for a long time.
Yeah.
But the overall, because then you cut in between that and him, again, going to the tower more. It's very cool. It's a very fun, like this issue, I think, had it been amongst other issues, probably would have worked better, because we do get, so the confrontation, we get Win, he eventually makes it to Win, and he basically says, look, I can get it, I got in here, which again is very similar, I got in here, nothing can stop me, but I know you have connected your life to the lives of Cyan and Wanda and Terry, but for you to stay alive, you now have to make sure they're alive. And the problem is, it never goes fully down the route that I thought I've always kind of wanted it to, and I thought more, I hate saying should, but I thought the more interesting route would have been him saying, I'm not going to kill you because I know that you're not going to kill them because you need them to be alive, so you need to protect them at all costs. You're going to protect them better than I ever could because you're going to make sure they don't die, or else I'm coming after you. But they never quite go that way. They never go all the way.
Yeah, you're right. That's actually way more interesting than the same threat we've had prior. I mean, we've literally, the last time that we did this, Spawn was like, look, I can get to you no matter how much security you have. This time he's like, look, I can get to you no matter how much security you have. Yeah, the only twist is, last time it was like, I'm here to kill you. You can't. I'm going to kill these people I've seen you around with. And this time it's, well, you're not going to kill those people you see me around with, because if you do, I'll come hunting you and you can't stop me. You already proved you can't stop.
Yeah.
So that's actually a really good point. But again, that goes to Spawn's impulsiveness and I think general selfishness as a character. He doesn't see that angle. That he can use this as a bargaining chip to help Terry, because honestly, if when we're protecting the Fitzgerald family, that would be a win for Terry. That would help Terry in a way that I don't think Al is capable of doing, considering what we literally saw from the last issue where he told Terry they were enemies.
Yeah.
It's a little too magnanimous, honestly, for the character. But you're right. I think it would have been an interesting character angle, and it would have shown us a sign of growth from a character I could desperately use a sign of growth from about now.
Well, and there's one or two lines that kind of hint that may be the intention, but they never go that far into it, so I can't really give that much of the benefit of the doubt, because it could just be read, oh, maybe that's just how he phrased it, maybe not. I don't know, because to me, that would be a cool way. They don't go that direction, that's fine. But I do think that would have been a very interesting way to have that same story kind of flipped a little bit, because you're right now it does just feel like a bigger, better version of what we saw before, with the exception he doesn't break his arms or do anything like that. He just
doesn't put him in a hospital, just gives him that big verbal warning. I do love, because as we've said a lot on this podcast, McFarlane, when he wants to, he can fucking nail the melodrama.
Yeah.
And there's something beautifully melodramatic about Spawn finally revealing his face, quote unquote, to Jason Wynn, and it's just back to being scabbed over enough that Wynn doesn't recognize the person threatening him. That is a beautifully delicious bit of comic book melodrama. And I mean this in the nicest way, elevates to soap opera melodrama, and it works so well. It's a really great moment. It did, however, again, you're talking about things that got touched on but that looked like they were going to mean something, but at least so far haven't yet. A flake of his rotting skin falls off and hits the ground, and Capullo draws, and McFarlane both draw attention to it very, very distinctly. And then we, as of this volume, we don't see what happens with that again. But we both know that McFarlane really loves to draw out his reveals like that. So I'm sure it's coming in the next volume, if not the volume after that.
True. I did like the end. The one twist we do get on at the end, where the guy in charge of everyone, comes up and says, "Oh, you must have saw who did it." It's like, nope, I didn't see anything. He's clearly like, it has some, for whatever reason, the second time it took, and it really sunk in the second time Spawn did it.
Yeah, and I do like Wind Shaken Up. I do like it's a fun, solid issue.
Yeah.
I just, again, and especially, okay, and that may be down to, we are reading these at a much accelerated rate the way they would have been on the shelves. Because, I say it was probably 2 volumes ago when we saw this happen last. That's a year real time. So I'm sure people reading it off the stands did not have that sense of somewhat deja vu coming across this again.
Oh, it's very, very, very true. Especially in 2020 where so many books are, twice a month. We are so used to having a very different way to read than this style.
A very accelerated reading schedule, yeah.
Then we get, so it ends off there, and then the movie happened, so we get issue 65, which
the most contentious issue of this volume for this particular podcast.
To me, it's not a bad issue, but it's for anyone reading. So essentially what's going on, Cog is explaining, because we had Cog and Sam and Twitch talking, and it's Cog explaining to Sam and Twitch all that's happened over the history of Spawn so far, to give people who have saw the movie a good place to check up and catch up on what's going on in the comics. I also still fucking hate this cover because it's just movie stills.
Yeah, but it's a very clear sign to people,
it's true,
coming in from the movie, that this is the book that is associated with that film you just saw.
Wish this would have been called, like Spawn Movie Special or Spawn Annual or some shit like that.
But it also has a pretty big reveal in it, which is, unknowingly or not, Spawn shows Sam and Twitch to be his earthly human lieutenants. That they are not just, they haven't just been dragged into this. They have a purpose, and even though Al doesn't quite know what that purpose is, there is a reason for them being there. And again, it's some of that McFarlane, I'll figure this out when I get there plotting, but it works really well here. Also, we have to discuss a little bit the format of this issue, because it is all splash pages with those blocks of text that you and I have complained about so often and so many times. It's literally like a little mini novel, like a little novella, an illustrated novella.
It really is, because you basically have giant blocks of text along with like one picture on every page for the most part.
Yeah, a big old splash page, a lot of double page splashes of Spawn holding guns and looking badass. Some fun pictures of close-ups on Cog's face or Sam's face.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, I picked this issue up having seen the Spawn movie when I was a kid. And yes, I'd read Spawn before. I've talked about my previous Spawn reading multiple times over this podcast. And I remember being a little disappointed in this issue. I thought the writing was a little too wordy. It was very much a recap issue, much like issue 50 we talked about. Though I think issue 50 was a lot more canny in the way it handled the story.
Yeah.
Reading this issue in this volume was such a major nostalgia hit for me. I fell in love with it in a way that I did not love it reading it as a kid at the time, and clearly not as much as you reading it now.
I definitely don't hate it.
It hit me perfectly.
To me, it just feels for the story of Spawn, like just reading this the way we are. Mm-hmm. It does feel almost like a bit of a roadblock, where it's like, okay, we're gonna stop and refocus on everything that's happened and get caught up. Mm-hmm. And it's beautiful how it's handled. I think the format's cool. But yeah, I think also for this volume, because not a lot else happens. Like from this point on, not a lot happens in this volume. Like my notes for the next issue is like one sentence.
Yeah, it thins the fuck out after issue 65. That's for sure.
Because so you have the catch-up issue, and then 66 is literally, for me, it's what I wrote exactly. Is Spawn realizes his face is gone as he spirals into depression.
Yeah, I will say McFarlane does this thing that he does every once in a while. He puts a hat on a hat.
Yeah.
In a way, excuse me, Capullo absolutely sells that Al Simmons is doing the staying alive walk just with the pencils and the way he handles
the beginning.
You don't need to call that out in the narration.
No, yeah. I agree. The beginning is the pencil work. I mean, again, Capullo through all of this is killing it. It's great. So this issue does open up. And
we don't have enough superlatives to talk about how good Capullo is in this fall.
It opens up with Spawn, so he thinks he's done this great thing with Wynn. He doesn't realize his face is falling off. He gets back dressed up in his suit, his gloves, all the stuff. He starts walking down the street and notices people are looking at him very odd till some dude starts calling out the fact that, he looks like shit. Like you mentioned, he's clearly doing the Travolta staying alive, walking down the street, but so much so that, McFarlane spells it out to the point of literally having the song lyrics below, above him, humming in his head. And even point out, the irony of staying alive isn't lost on him. It's like,
right.
You don't need to, it's, for one, it's already, like you mentioned, it's already pushing it to have the lyrics on the page, but then to go another step to be like, the irony's not lost. It's like, shit.
Right. It's a hat on a hat on a hat. It's so much, and it's one of the few times that I feel like, and I say this as someone who thinks that McFarlane tends to overwrite the shit out of stuff. He overwrites the shit out of stuff, but he never, before this, I felt like really didn't trust his artist. I always felt like he always trusted Capullo or Tony Daniel or whoever he had drawing the book. But here, it feels like by putting a button on it like that, by putting the lyrics, he didn't trust Capullo to sell what the beat he was trying to get. And that just feels off because, you and I can tell Capullo was selling it.
Yeah.
I feel like McFarlane could tell Capullo was selling it. But the fact that narration stays in there, it's insulting is too big of a word, but it doesn't feel right. It's again, hat on a hat on a hat. You can tell something's wrong.
Yeah, no.
It's just not the story just isn't gelling the way he wants it to, and he's trying to write his way out of it, and it's a bit of a mess.
It definitely is. It is. Sorry, I got choked up there. Not on the comic. My little Lawson went the wrong way.
Oh, dude, I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
That blows.
But hat on a hat, I have to good way to put it, because he finds out. He starts spiraling. He very sheepishly runs into Terry. Well, Terry Moore runs into him, and kind of just tries to.
After he has 2 pages of the most melodramatic suicide attempt I've seen in an issue of Spawn, which feels like that's saying something. And it's not bad, but it feels like McFarlane's vamping for time. And it's like, dude, it's your book. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah, again, this lost issue just Spawn's spiraling, but it's not even necessarily spiraling in an effect. He keeps spiraling in a way that is always effective, but never really moves forward. So he's spiraling. He approaches Terry,
and it's nothing we haven't seen before until he gets to Terry. And I do want to talk a little bit about this Terry scene, but you go first.
Because the Terry scene's good because it does start off like we've seen before, where he's like, "Oh well, let's work together, let's do this," and it's Terry, flipping the script and going, "No, I remember what you said. I'm tired of this. If you want to do this, let's do this now." And calls up Wanda, and Larry goes, "Hey, pick one. If you want Wanda, tell her. I'll leave right now. If you want to do this, let's figure this out right now." And it's a very great scene. It does give Terry it does give the character of Terry more momentum forward than almost anyone else, as far as he's kind of getting that self-esteem and that confidence back to go, hey, you were my friend. I get you have these powers, but you can't just walk all over me and just treat me like a toy in a drawer.
Terry is low-key becoming one of my favorite characters. And I did not foresee that happening because I'm kind of used to him being, the putz clown that Spawn had to save. Again, going into this reread, my absolute favorite Spawn story was Hunted, where, Terry is absolutely 1,000% the fall guy who Spawn has to save his ass. And then, of course, issue 50, where, again, Terry's dying and Spawn has to make this beautiful sacrifice that ends up keeping him alive for the love of his wife and his wife's love for Terry. But between the hug that Terry gives Al when he finally realizes that his best friend is still alive. And then this moment where he's like, fuck you, this is my marriage. This has been my marriage. You don't have this anymore. And if you want to try to take it from me here, stop being a pussy. Dude, Terry is low-key becoming one of my favorite characters in this book. I am rooting for him.
It's a cool little moment. It's a nice little touch. And it does add on to, after that, Spawn spirals more and adds more and more to why he keeps spiraling, why he's so down, why he's so depressed. He feels completely beaten. And Terry trying to do it. We should mention in that before, we have Cyan. It's kind of, we do see that she is still affected by the kidnapping. She's having kind of this rage outburst when the dog tries to run off with her shoestring pacifier.
Right.
And she has like a huge outburst on it. Like, I do like that they're keeping up with that even a little bit, of the fact that they're not just letting this kid get kidnapped and her have no psychological scars from it.
Right. Yeah. Again, it's more subplot momentum, and it's not bad. It's in fact very good in this particular case. I wish that the overarching story weren't affected by the fact that all these subplots need their plates kept spinning. Same thing goes for the next issue with Sam and Twitch's detective agency on the verge of bankruptcy and taking cases from a apparently crazy old woman.
Yeah, taking these cases, crazy woman that's just like hounding the death about aliens and about what's going on with her and how they're abducting her, all stuff, and then that's intercut between the homeless men having a religious debate and Spawn joining in on the debate. My only gripe with this is there's a couple lines about, we think, Spawn, especially later on, we're like, we think he might be magic or something. Like, you have seen this dude at this point survive.
Literally bring back someone from the dead.
Bring back someone from the dead. You've seen monsters attack him, beat all the monsters, him get beat up to shit, heal from all that, him almost die, him come back. All that you've seen him teleport, you've seen all this other shit. At what point are you just like, he probably knows a little bit about heaven and hell? Because I do like the idea and kind of some of the execution of debating about heaven and hell. I do think it's kind of interesting. I did
when I was 14. When I read these as a teenager, I thought this issue was really deep. Reading it now, it feels like an intro to freshman philosophy class, and I was grinding my teeth by the end of it.
I didn't hate it. I think the core of it's fine. I liked it. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I think you need books like that. I think you need moments like that. I don't think it's simplified, maybe, but also I think the core of what they're saying, I think, is relatable to a lot of people, and where
so much of the conversation felt contrived. It really felt like, again, the author McFarlane inserting his own personal debating himself or setting up straw men for himself to knock down. Now, what I do like is that he does. He doesn't just plug in his own beliefs; he also plugs in his own mythology, i.e. Heaven and hell aren't necessarily looking for the best and brightest or the worst and most horrible. It's more of a luck of the draw kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I do like that at least gets, paid lip service to. But there's, I don't know. This issue just kind of rubbed me the wrong way this time reading it through.
See, I did, but I also think even today, it's a subject, like religious, like actually having any kind of religious debate in a book, even today, still, you don't see a lot of books actually handling it. Like, you'll see books that will play around with it. Mm-hmm. But I at least appreciate the attempt of a more honest effort of a comic talking about it, because you got, in the 90s, I feel like you had a wealth of, whether it be this, or Sandman, or certain ideas in Invisibles, or other books that dealt with it. But even today, it's like,
or hell, Witchblade in Darkness over at Top Cow, which we were kind of talking off mic. There was some surprising similarities between the large Top Cow characters and the Spawn character over at McFarlane.
I can mention that because it's a shorter episode, so you know what? We'll talk about this for a second because it is loosely connected. Because the same week that we're doing this one, they had the 25th anniversary of Darkness, and it's the issue 1 of that. So I got the issue 1 of that. Because I had read it, actually, I don't know if I had read issue 1, because I think my only experience with the Darkness is playing the games. Especially Darkness 2. Phenomenal game, great game, how they handle the character, how they handle the Darkness itself. Amazing. I had never read the Darkness issue 1. I'm pretty positive I've never read it. And my God, it was weird, because especially reading this so close to this volume of Spawn, it feels like a weird spin-off if, like, one of the mafia goon somehow got a hell suit. That's kind of just what it feels like. And also, I've had no clue how I hate the design of the early Darkness suit and look. It looks fucking ugly.
Again, I can't really weigh in on this because The Darkness came out when I was a teenager, and I thought it was pretty bad. I didn't actually read the Darkness comics, but Wizard was all about Witchblade and the Darkness, so I saw a lot of coverage of those two properties. So I can't offer an unbiased opinion.
I don't hate, like, again, I'm a sucker for shit like that. Like, I'll read shit like that anytime. I'm a sucker for it, but it is just weird because as much shit as Spawn can get for, it's a 90s extreme book, whatever. It's not. Like, I'm sorry, Garth Ennis writing Darkness. I love Garth Ennis. For some reason, him writing Darkness feels somehow so much more immature than McFarlane writing Spawn. I didn't think that would be a thing. But I can definitely say Spawn is even like an issue like this where they're dealing with topics that are, for a lot of people, like this is one of the issues that I can totally see. People like 14 getting in trouble for having. And just because of having even an idea contrary to the main one. Reading the Darkness, even like the start of it, it has almost that Mark Miller point of, we're going to start the book off with the main character hitting somebody with the car to prove how, scummy they are.
Right, yeah.
It's like, okay. It's weird though, because even with this, we can use that same logic of, I wasn't I have been exposed to all this other shit now, so reading this now in my life is very weird. Because because like you mentioned, maybe when I was 12 or 13 or 14, the Darkness may have hit me incredible. And in fairness, the Darkness 2 game probably was, I don't know how, I would have been like probably 16 or 17, but and then even the design is just weird because Silvestri is always an interesting artist for me because he's really cool and he's in that same team as like the McFarlanes and Capullos, but for something that's always just kind of missing for me with him.
It feels gaudier, I think, flashier.
Maybe.
There's more of a surface level to his stuff. I don't know. I say that, and I really think his work on Uncanny X-Men, and especially Wolverine before he left, he had some really incredible storytelling chops.
Oh yeah, he's not bad by any means, but it's like there's something weird like keeping him from that upper echelon of like that one more step. I don't know what it is, but yeah, it's
no. But I can agree with that. I don't know what it is either, but I will. I'll back you on this.
I don't know. I'm interested. It's like I'm almost very interested because of how much Spawn evolved over just from me reading when I was younger. Now us doing this, I'm almost very interested because next February, I think they teased in the back that next February, like for the First Time Forever volume, the first quote unquote volume will be reprinted with I don't know how many issues. And I'm kind of curious to check that out. Yeah, I'm kind of curious just because, okay, does it get better? Does it not?
I have an idea. Remind me when we stop recording. I want to run something by you.
I kind of know Witchblade just had the same thing. And Witchblade's another one where I've never read anything of, but it's also in that same kind of... And Witchblade's even weirder because Witchblade, honestly, is probably more successful in its spin-offs than it is its actual comic.
Well, it also had a television series that The Darkness never managed to get off the ground. The Darkness was supposed to be a movie.
Yeah.
I know there was a lot of discussion about casting again in Wizard back in the day, but The Witchblade had a moderately successful television series for a while. It ran more than one season. So
I think its anime may have been its most successful thing now.
Oh wow.
And I don't know. The Darkness was weird because the Darkness games got really good. People loved those. They're 2 games. I don't know if the second one didn't sell great or not, but they made headway there, and I just don't know.
I keep forgetting about those because I'm not a gamer.
Yeah, I know it's fair, but yeah, no, I don't. Maybe I know that they last year they were saying they were going to try to reboot the Darkness's world in a big way. So maybe this is the first few steps in doing that.
Right.
I'd be very interested to see, especially now with Spawn being back in the shape it's in the Cells figures especially. I could see them trying to be like, hey...
Ride some coattails here,
yeah. You know what? McFarlane's doing it. Let's get some people. And you know what? You get the right people on Darkness, you probably can make an incredible Darkness book. You throw... I don't know, get like Ryan Stegman on art on that, and get somebody on some up and comer on writing. You could probably have some really cool shit there.
Yeah, for sure.
Why not put Joe Hill and Ryan Stegman on it?
See, I was thinking Tim Seeley, but I like Joe Hill more.
Yeah,
why not?
I loved a lot of Tim Seeley stuff. I feel like his best years are behind him.
I can agree with that just because I love Revival so much.
Revival, Hack Slash. I think he did a lot of really cool, but he had this great time. But the past 3 years, I can say as someone who reads basically every Crow book that comes out, he has now had the Hack Slash Crow crossover and Crow Lathe or whatever.
Lathe, was it? Yeah.
They are some of the worst Crow books ever.
That's unfortunate because he really talks them up on his Twitter.
Yeah, no, I could not finish either of them, and I own I own like a shelf or half a shelf of different Crow related works.
Yeah, you do.
I could not finish those two.
Wow.
They're not great. But to go back to something we do like a lot. So, to get back in the
world. We need to finish talking about issue 67 because not only is there a giant religious debate, it is actually used as a cover, we find out in the next issue, to get Spawn basically just fucking gunned down.
Yeah, no, Spawn gets gunned down. We don't know why, but for some reason his symbiote suit's not protecting him. It's not covering him. It's not protecting it. It's not whiplash. It's not giving him extra powers. He gets gunned down and his head blown out.
I feel like it's at least again it's not explicitly stated, but I feel like it's hinted that it's because, like you said, Spawn is in such a terrible place mentally. The loss of his face, the confrontation with Terry. He like you said, he was spiraling, and I think the suit is responding.
Well, they do
to his spiral.
The COG does give the reason next issue.
Oh, okay.
Because
totally spaced on that.
We do learn next issue that he went too far and went to a point where his suit, in that specific area, his suit has no power.
Oh, that's right. God damn it, I forgot all about that. There's a section of Rat City of the alleys that he has no.
Yeah, heaven and hell.
Something else has.
That's honestly probably the biggest overall plot point that will become bigger later in the series, because that will be a thing even going to not quite modern day, but not too far ago, where there is a dead zone that heaven and hell neither have any power in that area.
That's interesting, because I was going to ask, does it have something to do with the fact that the Freak seems to be in charge of that particular dead zone? But apparently that's not the case, because I'm sure it outlasts whatever the Freak is currently doing inside of it. Oh, no?
You're not too far off. You're not too far off, because I will say, without spoiling stuff, I will say the Freak is normally, a lot of times, is in that area.
Okay.
So
that's interesting.
He may not be controlling it, but I will say he's at least taking advantage of it.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, that's interesting because when I got to the end of this issue and saw that the Freak had returned, I will admit I uttered a small sigh of disappointment, because I still hold the introduction of the Freak as one of my single least favorite Spawn issues. But here it's at least a bit more interesting. We don't have the interminable interior narration of his thoughts.
That's true.
And he does do some horrifically violent things to a dude that was pretty interesting.
Yeah,
I look forward to seeing what happens next as the final page of this volume. Once again, taking advantage of the 6-issue story arc in a way that very rarely happens with these selections. We have Spawn essentially headless and crucified.
At this point in time, Spawn has got to be the most crucified character in all of media, honestly, probably.
Second only to Wolverine.
Yeah, because this is
or first only to Wolverine. Wolverine is second only to Spawn.
True. This is legitimately probably the 4th or 5th crucifixion, or close to crucifixion, he has been in.
In less than 70 issues, yeah.
Yeah. Again, Wolverine. Man, if you take dream sequences out for Wolverine, it may not even be close by the end of all this.
That's true.
But yeah, no, it's a hell of a good cliffhanger, honestly. Like when I go like, oh shit, that's right, this happened, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
But like so much of the volume is, I don't think it is.
It takes 2 issues to get there, and you didn't need to. Like I said, so much of this volume just feels like McFarlane vamping, and it doesn't. It's like, dude, again, this is your book.
Yeah.
You don't need to. Why are you vamping for time? It makes no sense. You can set whatever pace you want to set. The only thing I can think of is he has very little gas in the tank right now, and he has like, I know basically where I want to get to, but I'm not exactly sure how to get there. So he's just playing for time until he can figure out, exactly what this stuff with Spawn and the Sam and Twitch and Cog has to do. Trying to balance the story needs versus new readers coming in from the film.
Yeah, that's what I wonder. I wonder how much the film and if work on the HBO series had begun, or how much like when the toy line. I wonder if this is a point where maybe he's being spread a little thin, because there's definitely like this. Nothing in this volume is flat out bad. Like we don't reach the Houdini lows or shit like that. We don't get like some awful thing, but it is a lot of just. This is the most filler volume we've had.
That's exactly what I was going to say. You took the words right out of my mouth, man.
Yeah, no, it definitely is that. Like, there's nothing bad, but yeah, nothing really major happens. We have 6 issues where we end off in a different place, but we arguably end off in a different, less interesting place than before.
Mm-hmm.
Where he had the face, lost the face. We got a little bit of hints on maybe why, but not anything definitive. We got a lot more with Cog, some more with Sam and Twitch. We totally forgot to mention the lady that Sam and Twitch are helping. It turns out she had murdered her husband, and Twitch believes the reason why she was going to them was for a cover, so people would believe she's crazy, so she can probably get off.
She's trying to cop an insanity plea. Twitch does not believe her craziness. But she does appear to be addicted to the X-Files.
We should also mention Cog. I kind of like the running gag where he's like reverse Batmaning, where he just keeps appearing in like the backseat of Sam and Twitch's car and just giving them shit like, hey, we need your help over here. Here's the file. Like, how'd you get this? And don't know. Or like, oh, where'd he go? Like, yeah, it's a lot of Cog giving a big explanation and then disappearing or appearing.
Right. Yeah, it's a trick that is played one or two too many times to be cute anymore. It's funny the first couple of times, but I think McFarlane overplays his hand on that one. We'll see next volume. I'm very curious. That's the other thing about this volume, as fillery as it is, I am actually pretty desperately curious to see the next volume, because I want to see this pick up. I want to see where this goes, and hopefully it continues and maybe goes somewhere interesting and doesn't continue to meander like this volume did.
Yeah,
it was a little rough, man.
Yeah, I don't think it's not. It's not the best. It's not the worst. It's just kind of in the middle where it never does anything so bad where I was unpleasant reading it.
It's entirely utilitarian. It keeps the plate spinning. Nothing crashes. There's no tremendous, nothing tremendously terrible happens, but nothing really good or interesting happens either. Having said that, I am curious. Do you have a favorite issue in this volume?
I really liked the 64. I think Spawn infiltrating the building. I think all the art is amazing. I like how he takes out the people in very clever ways. It's a great action horror issue.
I agree. That's a very, very solid issue. I've got to give my vote to issue 65 because, again, I think more than anything, I just got such a jolt of nostalgia. Plus, I've really got to give it to McFarlane. Dude knows how to do a catch-up issue. He really knows how to, he knows his market. He did it with issue 50, and he did it with the issue that came out the month the movie came out. He knows how to put out a comic that both looks at the past of Spawn, hints at the future, and draws new readers in. He has a very unique and particular skill for that, and I have to applaud him for that.
That's fair. I don't hate it. I think it's a very interesting one. It does just feel weird where it's at and how it exists, but also it it dates it in a very specific way.
Yes.
Where we now know exactly what the time frame is where this came out and everything. We always know around, but yeah, we know exactly when, which, hey, it helps date this and helps do it. It is crazy, though, that we're on Volume 11 again. Volume 12, we are getting close to a full year of doing this.
We are going to finish out the year with Spawn Origins Volume 12 next month. And we've got a little bit of a housekeeping discussion to do for next month. I will say this week coming up is going to be a skip week because it's Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
We are going to, and while I personally don't plan on particularly leaving the house or anything, it's still a holiday, and we should. I feel like we should, take a break, let everybody enjoy the holiday weekend, however they see fit.
Yeah.
And then we'll come back a week after that with a new blah blah.
Yeah, and also, I mean, this week there are big comics things, but also it'll be I don't know. Maybe there's enough to talk about, maybe not. So yeah, a lot of that will be carried over to the next blah blah. But yeah, no. First of all, as always, thank you guys for listening to this. Thank you for finding us. Thank you for sharing us. If you like what
Welcome
you hear,
to all the new listeners who we've seen talking about us on our social medias, saying they just discovered the podcast. Welcome. It is so cool to see you.
Yes.
Please tell us how you found out about us because we desperately want to know what's working.
We would love to know that. I can know from analytics. If you're listening to this, you're probably listening to this on either iTunes Music, or Spotify, which is helpful. Have learned. I'll shoot you a special shout out. Apparently, we have quite a few people in New Zealand listening. So thank you. I don't know how you're here, but I love that you're here.
Yeah, it's freaking awesome, guys. And girls, we super appreciate it.
Yeah, I was shocked that right now, America, New Zealand, that's where most of our listens are coming from.
These are not traditional Texas accents, I promise. Neither one of us has a really pronounced accent. Get me drunk. That will change.
Unless we do to you, and we would love to know that too.
Yeah, that's fair, yeah.
If we do sound crazy, like super South Country, Texas, let us know, because if not, we'll have to invite someone on the podcast to show you how deep that rabbit hole goes.
Indeed. That would be our angle to get Donnie Cates on the podcast. Social medias, y'all. We don't have much in the way of Respawn social medias because Respawn is a subsection of our overall podcast, Blah Blah Comics, which if you listen to Respawn, please give Blah Blah Comics a try. It's a comics and pop culture podcast. We talk about more recent stuff, lots of digressions, lots of wrestling talk, weirdly sometimes. But you can find us all over the interwebs at that address. You can shoot us an email at blahblahpodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/blahblahpodcast. You can find us on Twitter, where I am at blahblahpod.
I am at HellhoundF5, as I am on Instagram as well, most other social medias that I'm on.
And on Instagram, I am at blah blah podcast. This is great. This is fun. Thank you all so much for listening. Like I say, we will not see you next week, but we'll see you in 2 weeks' time with another blah blah comics podcast. Check that out if you so desire. I'm sure there will be a lot of X-Men talk, and maybe or not some best of the year talk. We'll talk about that as soon as we're off the podcast.
That's right. Those kind of stuff are coming up. So. Maybe we will. Again, thank you all for listening so much. Also, last little thing while we're plugging stuff. Also, while you're on the channel, go check out Dangerous Humans. That's me and Daniel's podcast. It's where we talk about more independent and weirder comics. So, Spawn, if you like Spawn, but you like maybe some more of the weird outlaw comics from pre-Spawn and post-Spawn and some of the weird independent shit, go check that out too. I like to think we have almost every branch of the weird comics and art media we love covered right now. So if you love it too, we've got a show for you.
That's absolutely true. Thank you all so much for listening.
Goodbye, everybody.